The year is 1944, and it's the waning days of World War II in the Finnish countryside. A company of Nazis comes across a man that seems to be a deserter, but may just be a lot more than they bargained for. That is the simple premise to Sisu.
Sisu! We might have a problem.
So the trailer to Sisu just kind of popped up out of nowhere, got people really excited to see an old bastard kick a bunch of Nazi ass. That's the easiest way to get my money. I want to see some dude get creative, kicking Nazis' asses, man. You got my money, guy. So sure enough, they got my money. They got Guntik's money. And we sat our asses down to see Sisu. And what were our impressions? Well, I'm going to tell you mine because he's not here right now because he was, quote, hella tired. But I'm going to translate that to he's mad hating. Look, I know we just reviewed Evil Dead Rise, and I was less satisfied than not. My enjoyment of it was very much derailed by the issues of the movie. Sisu is a movie that also has plenty of issues, but I came out much more satisfied with this one than not. Now, before you say, oh, look, there's Ahab being a hater. No, it's just Sisu ends up being kind of an uneven experience. That doesn't mean it was not enjoyable. It was very enjoyable. It is a very simple movie, and that's to its benefit. The concept is simple, and it should be simple because this movie feels a lot like a spaghetti western, you know? Take all the tropes of a spaghetti western, but then just reset everything into a World War II scenario, you know? We got the one guy facing waves of injustice in the form of villains. You know, we got the silent protagonist. We got these gritty, extreme versions of villains. We got that dirty, grimy feeling and look. Rich color palette. Over the top violence. Has a lot of markers of a spaghetti western, and it certainly plays that way. In fact, when I was watching this movie, I couldn't help but compare it to In the Valley of Violence, which itself is a tribute to spaghetti westerns. Now, if you've seen spaghetti westerns, you also know that they themselves are inherently imperfect movies. It's more about the cool factor, and that's really what pulls Sisu through. It pulls it through the mire that it sometimes would potentially get stuck in were it not ultimately just about how cool it is to see Nazis get owned by some badass. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's as simple as that, and that's exactly what this movie sets out to do. Let me start off with the positive stuff first, okay? And there's plenty of it. If you saw the trailer, you were damn well excited about seeing Nazis get their ass kicked, and you're going to see a plethora of that. Now, to the detriment of the movie, perhaps, they showed a lot of the highlights in the trailer, so that's always kind of like what do you say to that? You know what I'm saying? You got to entice the public, but at the same time, guys, you got to hold something back a little bit, right? But anyway, it does deliver on that end. The violence is over the top. It's gruesome. I felt, they could have pushed the boundary a bit more, especially in the world where we're living, post, say, Django Unchained, itself a tribute to spaghetti westerns, but that pushed the violence way beyond the limit. So, you could have pushed it a little further, but I don't think anybody's going to come out of this dissatisfied because it's always, like I said, it's always super satisfying to see some Nazis get their ass kicked. Our hero is inherently likable. He doesn't say a word until the end of the movie, and that, of course, contributes a lot to the character. There's a lot of visual language in this movie. We learn a lot about him just by looking at him, just by being around him at the beginning of this movie. And I think that's really cool. A lot of the spaghetti westerns were populated by silent, grim heroes that were colored more by what we assumed about them or what others assumed about them in terms of the movie. That and they always came out as almost legendary status in their heads, and that's exactly what this character is supposed to be. He's a guy that's achieved a legendary status, which is something we learn, part way into the film, that he's not just a guy that's trying to run away from the war and happens across these Nazis. he's somebody that, well, there's a lot more to him. Let's just say that, right? So he is a walking legend. So having to learn about him by seeing him interact and or just seeing him in general. His body is a tapestry of scars, and that alone tells you a lot. Another great positive to this movie is how visually rich it is. The cinematography alone, it's gorgeous, man. This movie looks great, and it has a lot of, kind of like static, near tableau shots that are picturesque in quality. They really evoke a feeling, a notion, a particular vibe that it's going for. So visually, this movie looks fucking fantastic. The cast's really good, man. The Nazis are deplorable bastards. Our hero, again, very grim, very silent, but very engaging, And of course, they throw in the little dog guy. If you saw the trailer, you saw the dog. He's hella cute. I wish he was a bigger part of the movie. Again, I'll cite this one. In the Valley of Violence, the dog is super important to what's going on, And the main character in that is very similar to this one, although he talks a whole lot more. But, it's literally a guy trying to get away from conflict. And he has a dog with him. Well, this is a guy here in Sisu is a guy trying to get away from conflict, and he has a dog with him. I wish they would have done more with the dog. Yes, maybe it would have felt like that's the obvious thing to do, but I don't know, guy. Little dog characters are pretty cool. The violence, over the top, nearly cartoonish level. Some people might be turned off by that, not because they're gonna be like, "Oh, that's grotesque violence." I actually think it, like I said, it could have gone a lot further, But it is kind of incredulous. Now, it's supposed to be that way, but it might be a little too much for people to be rolling with the punches. You know what I'm saying? It might take some people out of the experience, and they might be going, "Come on, guy, how's that gonna happen? How's he gonna survive that? How's anybody gonna survive that?" Now, it's ingrained in the story. It's written into the story that this guy is, resilient as fuck. Like I said, his body tapestry of fucking scars, So you gotta have to accept that this guy is like near superhero fucking level status. I love all that type of stuff. But there were actually moments in this movie where I was like, man, how did that happen, guy? You know what I'm saying? Like how the geography of the movie is kind of weird too, Like I'd be questioning, like, how did nobody see that person there, Or how did this get done with nobody somehow noticing, There were moments like that despite me being in the groove of the film and the style it's going for. But I stress, this movie has a dark humor and there is a tongue-in-cheek approach to it. You're definitely going for an exploitation style. So, if you inherently understand that or you can get into that groove, shouldn't be too big of an issue. So what are these potential negatives that I'm talking about? The movie's a little fucking uneven, There's moments in this movie where you feel like the cartoonish violence has yet to be earned, And there's moments in this movie where, because the movie is trying to show you this guy kicking ass, it's forcing the villains away from acting logically. You know what I'm saying? Now, don't get me wrong. Tons of action movies have the people making some ridiculous choices for the sake of being villains or for the sake of being the good guy. Movies in general. Somebody gets shot in real life. They're not going to continue fighting against the bad guy until the story ends. They're going to go to a damn hospital if they don't outright die. So we, as moviegoers, accept that we have to suspend reality and take in the experience as it is. What I'm saying is here that despite being a moviegoer and being able to do that, obviously, as we all are, this movie has a lot of moments where you do wonder why they didn't just fucking shoot the guy. And some people might say, well, if you watch the movie, you're going to be like, well, this Nazi guy really took, he was particularly insulted by the affront of this guy's attack. So he wants to squeeze every inch of agony out of him. He wants to take some pleasure in killing him. True, but there's moments where it's like, have you even reached that point yet? Or what point do you go, I'm just going to shoot the guy? And here's the problem. There are moments where they're like, well, let's just shoot the hell out of this mofo. And the dude's like straight up Captain America or some shit, you know? There's a fucking hailstorm of bullets, and the guy barely gets hit. Here's the thing, though. To contrast that, the movie eventually reveals its cards almost for every one of these points of contention, and it shows you that the guy did take a lot of damage. It shows you that there's a reason for this or for that. And that lends to the character of this legendary badass, right? So it does kind of patch over the concerns most of the time. Sometimes it doesn't. It's still the question of why the Nazis were just taking their sweet ass time is still, you know, up in arms. But yeah, you know, it's kind of like a mixed bag in that regard. You know, you're wondering too much why certain choices were made, and maybe your mind is thinking they just wanted to show cool stuff happening, and logic and common sense was sacrificed for the sake of that. That's a mixed bag, because you're like, okay, this is cool looking, but at the same time, I'm wondering how the fuck somebody that's right behind a vehicle, for example, didn't see the good guy killing people from outside the vehicle. There's also, once the events of the movie come to their explosive ending, which is, again, very tongue-in-cheek and humorous and over the top, they do this kind of like time hop, basically, in the final act to show our character where he is now at the end of all things, right? And it kind of feels a little unsatisfactory, because we've been with this guy all this time, and you know, now your mind's thinking like, your mind has to fill in the blanks, and it's kind of like a big blank to fill. Like, did he like go back over here, and did he pick up the same exact vehicle? You know, visually, all these questions come up with what's presented to you. All that said, these issues said, they just feel like chinks in the armor of a cool-ass movie. And here's the thing about armor, knight's armor. Was it effective? Yeah, it blocked you from getting killed immediately by stuff. But it was also clunky. But it was also cool-looking. And that's what this movie is. It's a suit of armor. It's fucking cool-looking. You know, sure, it will get you places. But it's also going to be kind of this Frankenstein thing hobbling along at times. All said and done, what did I think about the movie? It was fucking fun as hell. Despite the issues that I saw in it, this movie is just a movie that's supposed to be motherfucking cool. And it does achieve that. And it's very entertaining for that. Oh, I gotta add also, man, the score in this is top notch. Very reminiscent of spaghetti westerns, you know. And it lends a lot of thick atmosphere to the ass kickery. I'm going to give it a 7.5. Okay? There are obvious, you know, clunky elements to it. There's going to be some, possibly some eye rolling from people that might not, you know, vibe with the over-the-top, almost cartoonish nature of things. There's going to be some people that may not be able to get over the weird leaps in logic. But at the end of the day, as you know, a stark, gritty, kind of neo spaghetti western style war flick with tons of action, hell of a fun time. You could do far worse. So there you go, man. Check it out if you haven't checked it out, and if you do, let me know what you think about it. In the meantime, I'm out.